Hello again, everybody. I'm Ron Thulin. Welcome to Conference USA Roundtable. This afternoon, we're going to be talking to three coaches and an administrator about what has been happening in Conference USA since the shutdown. We'll try to answer some of the questions that have been given to us, but also we're going to get an insight, a personal insight from all of how this has affected them, their team, and their university. We've got a great list of guests today. First of all, joining us, the head baseball coach at Florida Atlantic University, John McCormick, the women's coach at Louisiana Tech, Brooke Stoehr, the head football coach at UAB, Bill Clark, and the athletic director at North Texas, Wren Baker. John, I want to start with you. For the first time in 35 years, you are not on the field in spring. What has it been like, not necessarily the coaching standpoint, but from a personal standpoint?
Very odd, very odd. It seems like it's, in my mind, it's late summer. We finished recruiting, and we do have a few weekends off before school starts. So it's sometimes I have to catch myself that it's only April 20th. So it's been a really odd, but different. You know, we've had a chance to. I know we talked about it last week. Spend some time with my sons and wife and eat, and there's some good that has come out of it.
Bill, what about you? You were able to get a couple of spring practices in, but usually this time of the year, you're in full football mode. What has it been like for you?
Yeah, different to say the least. I do think for us, we were able to get in 6 days. I usually start a little bit earlier. In fact, I was going to start a week earlier, and we moved it back. So, but we were segueing right into spring break when the NCAA canceled the convention, and the tournament, and I just kind of went from there. But we were actually taking spring break. We were able to get 6 days in, and so then it's just a matter of what have we done since then. So obviously, the academics, the training, keeping up with your guys, the Zoom meetings that we're all have gotten really good at, I guess. But it's obviously it's been different. But I do feel blessed that we were able to at least get a few days in.
Brooke, how about you? For you, it was very difficult because you were at the conference tournament in Frisco, Texas. You won your first game. Your team was on an emotional high. Then they got word the tournament was over. Take us through what happened from the moment you heard to telling your players.
Yeah, it was very different. Obviously, usually when you end a season, you either win your last game or you lose your last game and your season's done. And we were actually 30 minutes from tip. We were in the middle of our warm-up. I just sent the team back out for the last portion of their warm-up before they came back in, and got word from Tommy McClellan, our AD, that I needed to go out on the court and get our group because they were canceling the tournament. So I'm walking out onto the court, and I meet them coming off, and the look of dejection and just sheer disappointment on their face, just hit me. And we gathered everybody, and you try to, take care of them in the immediate, and then, make sure that we're all safe. And very hard, had two seniors that ended their career with not even playing a game. And obviously there's a greater purpose in all of this, and the welfare of our world and our country and our people is at utmost of importance. But, it was very difficult for them to process. It was difficult for us as coaches and administrators to process. So we've just been trying to make sure that they're in the right mind frame mentally, that we're taking care of our academics, and that we're processing that, and that we're available for them. We talk a lot about loving and serving in our program, and it's been very hard to figure out how to do that virtually and from a distance. So that's something that we've been really trying to spend a lot of time as a staff, making sure that we're communicating consistently and effectively with our group.
Brett, I want to go to you because your men's team under Coach Grant McCaslin, they got a chance to cut down the Nets regular season champs, but then it ended. How difficult was it for you from an administrating standpoint to watch not just one team, but many teams up in Denton, Texas, see their seasons come to an end?
Well, I think it's really difficult because you understand the amount of time that the coaches and student athletes put into it. And, it was my approach to things generally is to be an optimist, but we were being faced with such rapid realities, and each of those scenarios was worse than, an hour before, 2 hours before. But, I think our coaches have done a really great job. Just listening to the coaches on this roundtable, they've been very positive with the kids and helping them understand that this is very disappointing for us for so many reasons. And people that say just sports or people who have never participated or been a part of a team. It means a lot more. It's family. But I think our coaches have done a great job in refocusing our kids on all the things we have to be thankful for. So men's basketball being an example. I was there when Coach McCaslin talked to them, and he talked about the memory of clinching the conference championship at home and cutting down nets and being handed the trophy and and how no one can take that away from us. So they quickly turned their attention to just remembering all of the great things and the journey that they'd had together and how they'd grown, and not so much focusing on what they didn't get to do. And so I think coaches have shown great leadership across this conference during this time and keeping the kids focused on really the positive opportunities that they did have.
When all of us got together last week and we were chatting about what we're going to talk about and things that were really affecting you, the overriding theme that I wrote down, and everybody mentioned it, was this is a growing experience for everybody, especially the young student athletes. John, I'll start with you because you're the first one that brought it up. How is this an area of growth for these young men and women?
Well, a lot of times when we get these players, they've never had any hardships. They've been very good players in high school, junior college. They've come to us, and we certainly provide a really good atmosphere for them to play, train, go to school. A lot of them haven't had that. Some of them had some individual moments, but a national type crisis where they go, wait a minute, what we do on a daily basis is really small and what's going on is really big. Now I have to figure out a way to get through it. So I think I think if the young people approach it correctly, they're going to come out on the other side, better people, better students, better. I talk to our guys. I challenge you each and every day to make yourself better, learn something, learn to cook, learn meditation, be a better brother, be a better student, be a better son, be a better grandson. Reach out to people, use the time that you've been given, because we always talk about, God, I'd love to do this, but I don't have time. I wanted to call my grandmother, but I didn't have time. So I think if we have time now, and we get them get them to start doing those things, then when this is over, maybe it'll continue on. Because in the end of it, it's about people and how we treat each other going forward.
Brooke, how about you?
Yeah, I think I would echo a lot of those same things. I think the slowdown has forced us to be more intentional and purposeful in what we do and how we spend our time. I'm hopeful that we'll all come back and go, there's a lot of clutter in my life right now that really distracts me from the things that are most important. And I think it's been great as a mom. I've gotten to spend just a ton of time every day with Aubrey and Cooper, and they're at a fun age at 10 and 7 where, that we can go ride bikes, we can play catch, we can shoot hoops, we can play a little football in the yard. And it's been really good for us because we do miss a lot. And especially with Scott and I both doing this, we're gone a lot. And so they miss both of us a lot of the time. And it's been great for us to be, as a mom, be there a lot more. I don't think they like the way I cook. And they've kind of confirmed that to me. But it's been really good for us as a staff to refocus and go, okay, we thought we were organized before. We need to be this much more organized and focus on these important parts of what we need to do with our players. And then for our players, we've challenged them similar to what Coach McCormick was talking about, of how can we become better as humans? How can we become better as student athletes? And I think that's our biggest focus during this time.
Bill, how about you? I know you're having a chance to spend time with your kids also.
Yeah, I think for that part, just we got our whole crew. I got both kids. My son's got to playing for me, and then GA, and now we're all here together. My daughter, her and her husband, she's expecting a baby, so she's kind of in that. This is her second child, so the worry of keeping her healthy. So that's been a silver lining in this. But I think when you start talking about your players, Two things we want. We want them to learn how to handle adversity, and I think you want a sense of appreciation. Well, it's hard to have appreciation when you hadn't gone through real adversity. To kind of segue off what Coach said, or both coaches really said, is that, you create appreciation, and these guys, a lot of them have not had, maybe they've had some personal adversity, but maybe not adversity like this. I've had a lot of them tell me, Coach, I didn't know how good we had it. So I think there's going to be on a level of appreciation that comes out of all this, which is really how we want to live. We want to live as appreciative people. And, maybe how we came up is different than some of them, but, we all have our things, but hopefully this will be something that we all grow and we learn from it, and we're appreciative of what we do.
Now, Wren, you've got 2 daughters. I have 2 daughters. I can't imagine having to, when they were young, having them spend 24/7 with me. How's it been for you? And you probably like this Zoom and our roundtable because you can lock your door and, hey, kids, don't come in here.
Yeah, well, they were threatened with their lives. Well, actually, their iPads, which they value more than their life, I think, at this point at the game, if they interrupted us. So, I've spent more time with my kids the last month than I probably do in a year, which is kind of a sad statement to say, but it's been an awesome experience. And I do think not only will the kids learn, the student athletes learn a lot from this. I think coaches and ADs will too. Do we really need to be at the office 10 and 12 hours a day? I'm having more participation in my Zoom meetings from our staff and our coaches than I've ever had. I mean, we have almost 100% participation in our weekly meetings. And so generally, if we get 75, 80%, I'm pretty excited. So I think this has opened a lot of our eyes to more efficient ways to do things. And at the same time, teaching us to value that personal connection and how important it really is. I miss our coaches. I miss seeing them. I miss our student athletes. And, I've always said that, how much I enjoy those relationships, but when they're taken away from you suddenly and you weren't prepared for it, I think being able to go in there and have those face-to-face interactions with our kids in the training room, in the weight room, that's going to mean a lot more when we return to normal.
John, you went through 9/11. How is this different? Because everything was shut down then. How is this different?
Well, on the baseball side, it's a little bit different because it was in the fall, so we didn't really miss out on anything. It's different because this is worldwide, and 9/11, there was a tragic thing in New York City, and 3,000 people have lost their lives, and right now we're at 40,000 Americans have passed away from this. That's just in America, not worldwide. So, and we're, 9/11 was about a 10-day stretch. And then we were kind of back to school. And this has been, we got canceled on, our last game against University of Penn was canceled on March 11th. We're 30 minutes from, as Brooke was 30 minutes from tip-off, we were 30 minutes from first pitch, and the game got canceled. Then the next day we got on a plane to go to Old Dominion, and we got canceled midway through. We were in the air. But it's different because I think it's global, and the amount of casualty, death is right in front of the young people every single day, where in 9/11 it was contained in New York, and it was a shorter little version of what's going on now. Neither situation was good, but this is something you've seen in the movies, and now we're living it. We're living it. So it's, and I think we haven't even seen the far-reaching effects of it yet.
And of course, communication is so much better now because you can do things like this with Zoom. And Brooke, 9/11, you were a player and you were getting ready for the season. Did this bring back any memories of that?
Yeah, I think it was just the immediacy of it. I think John talked about a little bit of, this is so much greater than us and what we do every single day. It gives you some perspective on, number one, your place in the world, but also just how great this whole pandemic is. I mean, we sit here and I think we're looking at a generation that's going to be shaped by an event, and it's not. It's faceless. We can't see it. It's, we saw the attack on the World Trade Center. We saw the attack on the Pentagon, but we can't really see this other than the results of people being sick and losing their lives. This is something that's just continued on, and it's uncertain because we don't know what the end is. And so I think for us, for me now, having been through that at a younger age, I look back and I go, okay, the one thing I really appreciate was the leadership that was in place. Coach Barmore, Kim, Mulkey, they all did such a great job of keeping us calm and just providing that sense of confidence and sense of consistency for us. And so I think as a leader now, I can use that experience and help my players by just being there for them and being consistent. Doesn't mean we have the right answers or we don't always know what's going, because like Wren said, things change day by day, sometimes hour by hour. And I feel like I need to give them more information, but sometimes that's just not feasible. And you just try to do the best that you can and be consistent with them, and let them know that you're here to support them.
Now, behind you, Coach Clark, is what your new stadium is going to look like, and it is spectacular. You've been part of a program being shut down, not because of viruses, something completely nobody can control, but is there a similarity between what you felt then and what you felt when you were told in spring that it was over for at least the spring practice?
I think it is two totally different situations. One was at the time, a death notice, and this is something that we know we'll end up coming out of. But I will say that the adversity that we talk about, and I understand hearing these coaches that, yes, ours is in the future and it is a huge deal coming up, but for them to have the season cut out or the season about to start, that would be very similar to what we went through, even though we were at the end of our season. But, I just think the adversity and the change, and, at that time for us, we had kids leaving, we had coaches having to find jobs. So, it was an awful situation. So I do think there's some similarities, but I do, once again, it's just this adversity. It's what do you do? How do you handle it? And I think the point of being positive, and I am definitely a half full, looking ahead, looking to the future. And I think that's what our players are looking for. I think that's what our communities are looking for. And I'm not talking about speaking untruths. I just think being positive and talking about coming out of this and not if, but when. All those things are important to our players, our staff, and our community.
Wren, I want to go to you. We are hearing a lot about models, at least as far as the virus is concerned, but you're having to deal with models for scheduling. Walk us through what you can tell us and how difficult it is when there's so much uncertainty.
Yeah, I think, that's probably what's the most difficult now. And even going back to your question, difference between 9/11, I was a GA for Eddie Sutton at Oklahoma State 9/11, just starting in my fall semester there, first year. And I remember watching that with him, but it in a pretty quick time, we kind of had an idea of who the enemy was and as a country, what we were going to do to respond. I think what's so difficult in this scenario is we can't see the enemy, and we don't know. We don't really know what the attack, the right movement is. So there's such a series of unknowns, and that plays into budget discussions, which definitely impacts scheduling. And so I do think we're going to spend a lot of time looking at both non-conference scheduling and conference scheduling. I can tell you that the ADs on our call, they're committed to doing everything they can to give the student athletes the experience they deserve and that we want them to have. But at the same time, if we don't make some difficult decisions to adjust some scheduling and pick up savings in where we can, 60% of our budget in North Texas is tied up in salary and benefits and scholarships. And so there's really, not a lot of operating to cut. And so if you don't make those cuts that you need to cut, it's two buckets you have to go back to, and nobody wants to do that. And so I think you'll look at people eliminating non-conference games that require a flight if there's not already an existing contract on those. I think you'll look at, is there a way in conference scheduling to cluster us in divisions or pods where geography is better in our favor to cut cost. And so I think all of those options are on the table. We're working through them. We're on calls 3 days a week, Zoom calls on those kind of issues. And so hopefully we'll have some resolution quickly. If we can get it done quick enough, we can book travel pretty cheap right now. So there's some savings there. So I know that our group is spending a lot of time having those discussions internally in their department as well as the league.
John, you and Brooke both had players that are not from the United States, and there were obviously some travel concerns at that point. John, how did you deal with that?
We have one player that's not from the United States, and his parents and I and everybody felt it'd be better if he stayed in Boca Raton. He's from the Dominican, and they just felt the medical services, the structure of what's going on in Boca was better if he flew home. So he's doing fine. He's in his apartment and happy and healthy.
Brooke, how about you?
Yeah, we have a couple. We have a freshman that was from the Netherlands, and their government had requested that all their citizens abroad return home kind of within a 2-week period. So we were able to get her home safely, and she had to quarantine a little bit when she got back home, but arrived safely and has been on our Zoom meetings with our team doing well. And then we had another one that actually stayed here in Ruston, and so she's doing great. We check on her frequently, and she's obviously doing well and healthy.
Well, this is for all of you again, because something we talked about last week. It all starts with academics, and people are saying, oh, we don't have sports, we don't have this. But you as coaches and an administrator, it is about academics. And I know there are some cynical people out there that don't believe that, but I know all of you quite well, and I know it's important. And Bill, I'll start with you. When you got the job again, you told me it's about academics. And that's something that you and the rest of the coaching staff and even Wren, you have to continue that and keep telling your players about that, correct?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we start every, we're trying recruits. I start every meeting every day, really. Obviously, we're getting ready for practice, but somewhere in there, it's going to start with academics. And, we remind them this is what you're here for. We know they're going, for me, the football part, they want to hear that. The coaches are going to talk about it. So the big worry for us is what was going to happen academically. And, it's for all these classes to go virtual and go online, that's something that we're all of us are having kids in classes, in those kind of classes, but there's the hands-on help from a tutor, and then there's also just being in a classroom setting with a teacher, and it just requires a lot of discipline. I think that's really been one of my biggest concerns. We've got finals coming up here in about another week or so, that's just a constant communication between them, their advisor, their faculty member, that their teacher, and we've talked a lot as a staff, and I'm an old high school coach, so it's all about being hands-on with our players to know what's going on with them academically. So we're trying to stay on top of that, but that's been a big worry for us.
Brooke, you're on a quarter system at Louisiana Tech. How does that affect you?
Well, we had just started our spring quarter the Wednesday that the tournament started, and so we've essentially been online or in school virtually for the entire quarter, and so we won't finish until the end of May. And so it's been an adjustment. I think our academic advising and academic counseling services in our athletic department's done a tremendous job of just staying in constant communication with our players. Our students know that there's one thing that I don't play around with, and it's our academics. And so they've been very attentive to that. And, it's something that our staff monitors weekly with their individual groups, and then as well as communication with our women's basketball academic advisors. So something that we've been very focused on. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for our professors. I think a number of them have been apprehensive of, you've been in a classroom for, 20 years, and then all of a sudden you have to meet your fears and go online and teach a class. And that's something different for them. So I think, again, it goes back to another reason to help our players understand how to be approachable, how to be proactive, and make sure that they're communicating at a level that and show some grace to some of those professors too, that this is the first time they've ever done that. And so there's a little bit of fear and trepidation on the other side of that as well.
John, how about you?
Well, we always talk about it as coaches. What are you going to do when sports is over? And this is a perfect example of it's going to end. It's at some point in everybody's life. And you need to make sure you have your academics to get you through for the next 40, 50 years. So I think that this just brought it to the forefront. Everything like, Bill and Brooke said has been online. They seem to handle the online better than I do. In my mind, because I would always I say to guys all the time, I would want someone there to get some feedback from, where these guys, the way they learn is different than the way I learned. So I don't worry so much about it. And like Brooke said, I think our academic staff has done a tremendous job. The university has done a tremendous job. The teachers have all jumped in and did a good job. But I think it's, again, another learning piece that we can put together that say that, we love to play sports forever, but it ends for everybody. It ends for Michael Jordan, and now he did something different. It ended for Derek Jeter, and he's doing something different. It's going to end for you too, and we have to make sure that you're prepared for that ending. And the academics piece of it is the most important part, to be prepared for the end of the career.
Wren, you have to stay positive, and all of us, I think, are. I don't think there's any question about that. And I get people stopping me. Is there going to be this season? Is this going to happen? From an athletic director standpoint, you have to pretty much stay on top of things, see the big picture, but also stay positive to your fans, your alumni, your boosters, and your sponsors. Talk about what that is for you and to make sure that you stay that positive way.
Well, I think it just starts with your outlook in life. And I really do count myself very blessed. I'm here with my family. They're healthy. I have an income coming in. And so there are a lot of people who are facing much, much more difficult circumstances during this time. We're going to get back to normal at some point. It may be a new normal, but we're going to get back to normal. And so the challenge is just planning for what is kind of an undetermined, unspecified amount of time. And because of that undetermined, unspecified amount of time, really limitless budget scenarios. And so, all you can do is try to communicate transparently with your coaches. And that's what I've done. I'm very positive with them that, we're going to get through this, and we're, because of this, just like we talked about with the players learning lessons, us learning lessons, we're going to be more efficient and better prepared to move into the future. And so, out of crisis is always born new ideas and ingenuity and all of those things. And so that's where our focus is. We end every call, I'll pick somebody random on the Zoom call and just say, what are you most looking forward to when we return? Because I want to end it with that, with people focused on the future and getting back together. So even if it's a doom and gloom budget session, and we've had a couple of those, I try to end it with let's talk about the future and what we're looking forward to.
This is on a little lighter note. If I were to call each of your spouses or your kids, what's the one thing they'd say? He's driving me or she's driving me nuts because of. I'll start with you, Mac.
Cleaning.
What would Katrina say to you?
Stop cleaning. And stop ordering people around. As my son says, I'm not one of your players.
Bill, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's just fine, that I'm always, I'm on walks, I'm moving around. You're looking for stuff to clean up. You're just, of course, my wife's been giving me that for almost 30 years now. I've quit treating her like a player, but just our fact that we're used to working from 5 till whenever, 5 in the morning till whenever. Just we got to have something to do. And so you're constantly looking for something to do.
Brooke, what drives Scott crazy?
Yeah. Well, we work together, so he probably is really tired of seeing me at home too. So I would say cleaning. I'm Enneagram 1 to a T. I want things in order. My children are tired of, if they've learned to make their beds, they do that every day, and probably exercising. We have 4 coaches in our neighborhood. So Lane Burrows, our baseball coach, lives across the way. Our new defensive coordinator lives in our neighborhood, and then Scott and myself. And so we constantly pass each other either on a walk or a jog or a bike ride or something. And you can tell we're all coaches and we're used to being, active and doing something. I can't sit in the house. So we're all over the place.
Wren, how about you?
She would say 2 things. One, she reminds me every day that they manage to get through life every day just fine when I'm not here.
Without you, yeah.
And so, they don't need my constant critiques and directions and instructions and all of that. And then the second thing is my wife would very much like to plan our dinners, and I very much would like to order out because she cooks things like baked fish and chicken, and and I'm like, hey, how about we have a ribeye here? Let's order this out. So we have some discussions about what is appropriate for meals, and then she lets me know that life carries on just fine when I'm not here, and so I don't need to be in there policing anybody.
Well, the only thing I have left to do is clean my closets. It's like once a year, she makes me go and throw away T-shirts that all you guys have given me, which you just don't do. You don't throw away my hats or my T-shirts. I'm good. Leave me alone and I'm fine. But I think I'm driving her sufficiently crazy after 37 years, Ladies, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on our Conference USA Roundtable. You are all of inspiration to all of us, and we know that we are going to come back. We're going to come back stronger, and Conference USA will be bigger and better. And we are just so thankful we have leaders like all of you. Thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Travis.
Be safe.